Welcome back. Today I'm going to try to solve some puzzles over on chess.com. For those of you that are new here, I'm not a titled player or a chess coach. I'm just a random person trying to get better at chess. The draw for this channel is that you're about at my level, probably, just above, just below, and maybe you can learn something as I learn it. Maybe you can teach me something if I miss it. Maybe I can teach you something. I'm going to switch over to the screen right now and click on puzzles. Last time I made it to 1677. Going to get as high as I can in about 30 minutes on my end. Hopefully it'll be shorter on your end. This knight has just hopped in here, but I'm guessing this is one of those traps where if I take their queen, they get something here. Looks like they'd have mate, if I'm not careful, right? If I move that bishop away so it's not guarding this spot anymore, it looks like my opponent will checkmate me here, because right now my bishop's the only thing guarding that square, and their knight is guarding this square. So I cannot take their queen. I think I need to take their knight. Or, no, I need to check and then take their knight. That's my guess. I'm going to check. I assume they'll block that check with either their queen or their bishop or this pawn, and then I'll take this knight, which will also be check, and then I'll take their queen. That's my guess. Okay, they did block with the bishop. Okay, I will take the knight. Okay, and at that point they had to block the check or get out of check, and then either way I would get their queen on one of those two squares. Oh, and I got 12 points for that. Okay, well, it's a good thing that I had seen that tactic from the other side. Otherwise, I would have missed it here. Okay, oh, and that puzzle was rated 1812. Let's go on to the next one. I have a hanging bishop here, but it also looks like my opponent may have some follow-ups. Not there, my queen is guarding that square. Is it just the hanging piece? There is a check over here. I should always check for checks, right? If I check, the king's going to come toward my knight, and then I don't know what to do with it, other than go back where it's hanging there, right? If I take this, they're going to take this knight one of two ways. Also, this knight is hanging. I've just left pieces hanging all over the place. Oh, no, I didn't well, that's frustrating. I didn't click that. I right-clicked it. I'm positive I right-clicked that square. Like this. Okay. Well, I lost that puzzle and lost 10 points because apparently I don't know how to work a mouse. All right. What I was trying to say here, and I think I'm right-clicking now, is that this pawn is hanging as well because it's protected by the knight. But they have two attackers on that pawn, so that wouldn't be that good of an idea. I was probably going to fail the puzzle anyway, to be fair. And maybe I should have warmed up by playing a bullet game or something, but so I got my mouse skills here. I've been distracted all day. My washing machine broke this morning, just on laundry day, as it usually happens. So I had to go buy a new washing machine. I had to take out the old one, and I had to install the new one, and then run some laundry through it to make sure that I installed it correctly. And those things are heavy. I moved that by myself and installed it by myself, so I'm pretty proud of that. But anyway, back to this puzzle. All kinds of things are hanging. I can take this bishop, which attacks their queen, but then where do they put their queen? Honestly, I think that's what I should do because that saves both knights, right? Right now, both knights are hanging. Taking this bishop instead of this one saves my knights. And that bishop is still there. I mean, the bishop might take my rook, but then I'll take it with something. But I've already failed a puzzle, so let's see. Oh, it was that. Oh, they went down there trying to checkmate me. I suppose I could check here, which forces the taking of that queen, right? We'll trade queens. Right now I'm up 2 minor pieces because we both have a bishop, a queen, and 2 rooks. I'm going to try that. Oh, so I would have solved this puzzle because I knew exactly what to do, apparently. I wasn't sure, but that's what it was. But instead I lost 10 points for it because I clicked the wrong button on my mouse. All right, that happens sometimes. Oh, and here the green button, which you can't see, just has an arrow on it. It doesn't say next puzzle anymore. Oh, but I got 12 points for the first one and lost 10, so I'm up 2. All right. Well, better than I started. I do have a check. That's right here. My rook is cutting off this file, so the king would have to go forward. Couldn't go here because of my pawn. And from there, my knight would be guarding my pawn. And this would not yet be mate because the king would have another square. Okay, so let's follow this out. That's not my only check. I have a check down here on c1. But knight to b2 is a check that forces the king here. There's no other legal move, I don't think. And then the pawn protects my second check with the rook, while the knight's protecting the pawn, and the pawn's protecting the rook, and the rook's protecting the knight. They're all working together like a team. But then the king would have to go up here, and the knight would still be protecting the pawn, and then I would have a mate there on e2. I think that's it. All right, I got 7 points for that. Apparently that was an easier one. It's only rated 1429, and it has a pretty high pass rate as well. Yeah, I don't know that any of you care, but I have noticed all three of these, the green button just has a right arrow on it. Doesn't say next puzzle anymore. So maybe I'll quit saying next puzzle when I click it. I am playing with the white pieces. Let's see, that means my pawn's going this way. Their pawn's going this way. So our pawns are able to take each other right now. But their king isn't able to take my pawn. So if I checked, my rook's cutting off all these squares. My king is cutting off those two. So their king would have to go to one of these 3 squares. Then I would check again and win their queen. I think that's what it is. And then at that point, let's say they had gone here and I checked and they moved over behind my pawn and I took their queen and they took my rook. Then I could take their pawn. But if that point they didn't and they took my pawn instead, I mean, then I would have my rook here to block that pawn. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, that was right, but I only got 5 points for it because it should have solved it faster than that. They're about to promote, so maybe one of the themes in this puzzle will be passed pawn. However, I do not have a mate just yet. That's not checkmate because they can block with their rook on F8. But then I would check with the knight. Their king would have to move and I would take their rook. That's got to be it. Okay, and I got that one fast enough, so I got 11 points. And I broke 1700 for the first time in this puzzle run. This is, I think, my 3rd time attempting a ratings climb in puzzles. The theme was made in 3. I think that was made in 3. All right. I'm not sure why, but the volume sounds really low to me. I don't know if you're hearing that, but I'm not. So I'm going to turn that up a little bit. I just realized that the clicks were sounding really quiet to me. And yes, because I am recording and operating several pieces of software here, I often get distracted by tiny things like whether the sound is right or which piece of software is doing what. I assume that also happens during my rapid games, which may be one reason I'm doing poorly since I started recording them all. But I do not know what the answer here is. I do not have a check, and I don't have any captures. None of my pieces or pawns can capture any pieces or pawns of the opponent. So that must mean that there's a threat. Threat of what? I'm not sure. Only thing I can see that I would consider briefly is G5, because my queen protects that square, so the bishop would back up, and it would have to back up, I think, to at least D2. And then there are other bishops trapped, so I would advance that pawn again and win that bishop for a pawn. I think that's it. Let's try it. Okay, and then it has to be that because there's literally nothing else going on here. Okay, I'm not sure what that did except undefend the bishop. At least this way they could have taken back. I'm going to take the bishop. Got 5 points for that. Trapped piece. Well, I didn't see that piece was trapped until I saw I could attack the other piece, but we did see it. I still have no idea what that pawn move was about. Other than, I guess now I don't have access to this diagonal maybe is why they did that. Because once the rook moves someplace, then my pawn's stuck there because that's not there. Whereas otherwise they would have had 2 doubled pawns, but this G file would have been opened. But I couldn't have checked there yet because of their bishop. That's the only thing I can think of is why they pushed that pawn forward. Their king has just captured something, I think. I am playing with the black pieces. Unfortunately for my opponent, their queen is over here on A8 doing nothing. What can I do? I can check here. I can check here. Sorry, I need to start naming the squares. That's something I need to practice. I can put my bishop on E6, and that's check protected by my pawn. That's the only check with the bishop. I can check with the queen on D3. That's the only safe check, I believe. If I check by capturing their E4 pawn, they take back. And if I check over on B3, I assume their pawn would take. Let's look at this queen to D3 check first. Their king can't come backward. Oh, that's just checkmate in 1. Okay. Well, I was going to check this bishop check also, but in the case of the bishop check, the king could have come forward, and then I couldn't have checked with my queen on D3. That puzzle's rated over 1700, and it was a mate in 1. So just a reminder, if you're doing puzzles, look for checks. Evaluate each check, whether it's a safe check, even if it's not a safe check, whether it leads to further checks, or a capture, or going up in exchange. Evaluate every check. And then after that, if none of those work, then look for captures and threats. Playing with the black pieces, we will look for checks. I have a check down in the corner, which I think is bad. I think their rook would capture on G1, and then I don't have anything else that can follow that with, and I think that's my only check. Okay, I do have some captures. For example, I can take this rook now on e1, but then they would take back, and then I could take their other rook, but then they would checkmate me. So I don't think it's that. Let's see, would that be mate? I took that rook and they took back, and I took their other rook, both on e1. So my rook is down there on e1 now. My back rank is empty. My queen guards d8, and my rook down there would still be guarding e8, and my bishop is guarding g8, because that front rook would be out of the way. So, okay, it wouldn't actually be mate yet. They could check down here with their queen on b8, but I could block that with my bishop on g8, protected by my king, and their knight can't quite get to it. I don't see anything else, but it looks like I'll go up a rook here. And currently we're even on material. But before I do that, what else is there? There is this pawn, which is just free, but then they'll take my rook, and I'll take their rook, and then my bishop won't be able to get back here, because my rook would be in the way on e6. There's this capture, but that also loses just about as... They'll just take my piece. Can't take the knight. Wait, is their queen trapped? That's something else to look for. Can attack their queen, but I think it could just sidestep there. Okay, I'm going to take the rook on e1, and I'm going to take their other rook on e1. And then I'm going to block with the bishop. Okay, they're looking for mate here, so I have to be very careful. Right, I'm right so far. Let's see, how do I stop that mate? I can check them. I still have this check because their rooks aren't guarding their back rank anymore, but their king just comes out here, and I'm still not protecting g7. I didn't expect the puzzle to keep going after I blocked there. I check. Wait, I check with the rook, they just take it, and then I don't have this check. Okay, so that's not it. Okay, so if I check with the queen on g1, they only have one legal move, which is to go to g3 with the pawn between us. And then I can't get back to guard that. Wait, can I bring my queen? Oh, if I put my queen on b7, it's a check and protects this pawn. That's got to be it. And then their only legal move would be to move this pawn forward. I'm going to try that. Okay, well, that's a relief that I got that correct. Oh, that one only has a 38% pass rate, so out of 28,000 attempts. So I feel pretty good about getting that one right. It did take a little while. I think it was my last puzzle video where I got almost all of them except the second one. The second one I failed. Hopefully I won't fail anymore here, but we'll see. Okay, I am playing with the white pieces. For example, this queen I could check on c2. For that matter, I could also check with my queen or my rook on the h file. I wonder which one would be better. I think those are my only three checks. I think the rook is not the right answer. My reasoning for that is that the king comes out to g6. And then if I check with my queen on c2, which I think would be... No, that wouldn't be my only queen check at that point. But it would be my... Wait. Maybe that is better. But that's not the king's only legal move. The king could also... No, the king can't go back. My queen's covering that square. Okay, it would have to go here. Maybe the rook is the right answer. The king would have to go to g6 if I checked on h1. Then I can check down here on e6, which cuts off all those squares, while my rook is cutting off all of these, which would leave the king only one legal move. And then is that mate on f5? I think that's mate. Let's watch this. Do they have any pieces? No, their queen can't capture on h1. So rook to h1 check. It can't go back because of my queen. Oh, it could block. Okay. So that's what I need to check for, all the other legal moves. They can block with the bishop. If they block with the bishop, however, then I have queen to f7, which leaves only one legal move, and then I take with my rook, and that's mate. Okay, I think it's the rook check. But just in case, let's check the other ones. If I check with my queen here, the king can go back where it just came from. Right now, my queen is keeping it from going back there. Okay, what about this? I think that's the same thing. The king can go back. That's the advantage of the rook check, is the king can't go back. Okay, and I think it has to be here, because now if I check here, they can just block with the pawn. So it has to be here. Oh, they blocked with the bishop that way. Was not expecting. Okay, I still have the check on f5, but that allows the king out this way. Then I have the check with the rook on h7. I don't think it's a removing the defender thing. If I sacrifice the rook here and the king takes and I just get a bishop for it, the king just gets out of check. Let's see. And I can't check here because the rook is still guarding the back rank. So I think it has to still be f5, right? That gives their king two choices. Either way, Either way, I would be able to bring the rook to h7 because my queen would be guarding h7. I don't think anything else makes sense at this point. Okay, well then it has to be that. Now the bishop is pinned, so they can't block with the bishop this time on rook to h7 check. And their king wouldn't be able to come up here. My rook would be cutting off all of those squares, so it would force the king to the back rank. I would take the bishop. If it went straight back, I would take the bishop with check. Okay, but what if it didn't go straight back? What if it went to one of the other two squares? Well, then I could follow that with a check beside the bishop. If it went over to e8, I could probably check with the rook and win their rook, I think. We're going to find out. I mean, it doesn't make sense to check here with the queen because not only could they block with the bishop again, but then they could escape toward the middle of the board because my queen wouldn't be guarding e6 anymore. Oh, and it stopped there. Okay. I'm glad it stopped because, again, what was I going to do, right? I mean, my queen is protecting the rook there. Guess if it went there, I would check here on... If the king went to g8, I would check on g6 with my queen, would force the king over, and then that would be mate. And if the king went to e8, as I mentioned, I could check on h8 and win their rook. Or if the king went to e8, I think I could check on e6. And if the king went back to f8, I would have mate there. And if the king went that way, I would have mate there. Okay, so we were just a couple of moves from checkmate either way. Theme was mating net. Well, I don't know about that. I just know that we were doing some forcing moves and their king was vulnerable. And this dark square diagonal was kind of locked up by their own pieces. So I was able to operate on these light squares, which my pawn controlled. And of course, the open file for the rook and open diagonal for the queen. I will click the green button that no longer says next puzzle on it. Okay, well, I do like discovered attacks, and this will be a discovered attack if I move this knight somewhere. Where should I move the knight? I could move the knight there, where it would protect the bishop, because the bishop's undefended right now. Oh wait, my queen's under attack. Also, my rook's under attack. All right, well, I could check. Actually, I have two checks right now. I do not have any checks with the knight or the bishop, but I do have two checks with my queen. So I should consider those. If I check with my queen on a5, they could block with the knight. They wouldn't block with the queen because my knight's guarding those two squares. If they blocked with their knight, then I'm not sure what I would do at that point. What about queen to h4 check? They can't block that with anything. So the king would have to move. Interesting. And wherever the king moved would be check from the knight, would be able to be checked by the knight, right? Because my queen would be hitting those two squares. My knight's currently hitting that one. So the king would either have to come forward or go sideways. If it went to e1, then I would have mate there if it went to f1, I would have mate on f2 with my queen protected by the knight. If it went to e2, then I could check with the knight over here and win their queen on the following turn. If it went to d1, then I could check here and win the queen on the following turn. So I think it's queen to h4 check. Okay, it moved forward. So I have this check here, which would leave only one legal move, but then I wouldn't have a mate because their queen's guarding that square. And then I wouldn't have the same kind of discovery that I had before. But right now I can check with my knight and win their queen. That's gotta be it, right? Because again, this check doesn't lead anywhere. They're safe there. They're safe on d1, I think. Because I can't take their rook. I can't check on the back rank because of their rook. I can't check over here because of their queen. I can't come take this pawn and check them because of their queen. I'm going to try the discovered attack or double attack. Check with the knight. Wherever the king goes, I take their queen. They can get my rook, but I think I'll be able to get him back here in just a little bit. Oh, they're threatening my queen again. Wow. You know what? This will be a check, and then I can run away with my queen. Where do I want to run away to? Oh, that rook is hanging. Okay, I should take their rook. Wow, that was a lot of move. Oh, it took me that long and I still got 10 points. Because my camera view's in the way. Let me remove it. Look at that. 8.3% pass rate. And it's only been attempted 288 times and the rating is pending, but still 8.3% pass rate. And I got it. Oh, and it says incredible. Well, it feels incredible. I didn't think I was going to get that. That one was difficult. I'm glad that I waited. I'm glad that I looked and was patient. All right. I think I have time for one more if it's quick. If not, of course, I'll edit down. Let's see. Do I have any checks? I do have a check. Oh, wait. My queen's right here. I check there, their king escapes. But the same thing happens if I check with my queen. Their king escapes. Do I have any other checks? I mean, I have that check, but I don't think that's any good. Capturing on e6 or capturing on f5. Probably even worse because that results in me being in check and having lost a queen or a pawn. I don't have any captures other than those 2 pawns. Well, let's follow this out then. Rook to g7 check. The king only has one legal move, which is back to e8. Oh, and then I get their rook for the queen. I mean, first I could go over here and check, and I suppose they would have to block. Well, if they blocked with their queen, then I would take it, and that would be checkmate. But they could block with their bishop, and then I would have to take that, so they probably wouldn't block. Okay, so if I check, rook to g8, g7, check, king to e8, queen to b5, check, the king would probably move over, and then I would take their queen for the rook. So it makes more sense to just take the queen first. Wait, I'm down a whole piece. Right now, I'm down that bishop. So if going up the queen for a rook, does that make up for being down a bishop? But I think that's what it results in anyway. Oh, I'm so glad that was just one move. There's no theme listed for that puzzle. Maybe because what would the theme be? But yeah, the king escapes, and I think at that point I would take their. Well, that's all the time that I have for today. Always try to remember that however long the video is on your end, if it's 20 minutes or 19 minutes, it was usually a third longer or 50% longer on my end. So a 20-minute video for you is probably a 30-minute video for me because I take out a bunch of pauses, repetitions, places where I just stared at the board mindlessly. Usually I take out things like interruptions and phone calls and when salesmen knock on the door, etc. So that's my 30 minutes for today. It says I'm unstoppable. Well, I am stoppable. As you all know, if you've been watching very long, I can easily be stopped, apparently. But not today. I was only stopped once. As always, thank you for spending your time here, and I'll see you next time.